Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the final panel session of the first day of Professional Care Workers Week. This panel is focusing on looking ahead to the future of care and why ESG matters so incredibly much. Before I kind of talk to you more about how this panel will work, I want to say a massive thank you to Flourish Learning for sponsoring this session. It is really greatly appreciated. As you all know, we have the Q&A function live, so you are able to ask questions in real time. We may not have the time at the end to get round to all of the questions, but I will try my best to highlight them in the conversations that are happening. And also the panelists on this session will also have the chance to reply to your questions if they are able to. This panel will be uploaded onto YouTube, so if you are missing out on it, please do not worry. And yes, I will pass over to Phil first to introduce himself to you.
Great, thanks Olivia. Good afternoon, nice to see you all. My name's Phil Hitchcox from Flourish. We are a training and learning provider for social care, so we've been around about 20 years, supporting over 120,000 care workers with their training and their learning. So from people that are joining the industry for the first time right up to senior leaders. We work alongside thousands of care providers, so small, medium, large and everything in between. And we support not only with their professional career development and giving them the skills they need to do to operate within care. We've moved largely into supporting their personal development, and health and well-being has been a larger kind of topic over recent years, and certainly a lot of the training that we deliver to care leaders really has kind of looked at ESG and how they can apply different frameworks, different practices, and kind of it moving away from the boardroom to be actually applied into the business. So very much my role and domain is very much kind of workforce management, workforce development within the care communities.
Thank you, Phil. I will move on to Jacob.
Hi, so I'm Jake Kirtley. I work for Elevation. I'm the ESG director, and we are investment managers in the healthcare space. So I look after everything from corporate reporting right the way down to asset management and reporting on utilities and carbon emissions. I'm in charge of our net zero strategy and also work with the operators as well as the investors and other stakeholders in embedding ESG across everything we do.
Thank you, Jake. I will then move on to Stephen.
Thanks, Olivia. Afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name's Steve Ferguson. I'm the head of healthcare at Barclays. And one of the top great joys and pleasures I have in my life is I get to tour around the country, meeting our care home clients, visiting care homes, meeting care home managers, care workers, and spending time with what is a truly fantastic sector. In terms of sustainability, the other sort of string to my bow, if you like, is I co-founded the Social Care Sustainability Alliance, which is a group of care providers and investors and advisors who get together on a kind of quarterly basis to share best practice on sustainability. And I do that in conjunction, Barclays do that in conjunction with Adelshaw Goddard. So thanks, Olivia.
Thank you so much, Steve. I will then move on to Aaron.
Thanks, Olivia. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Aaron White. I head up everything sustainability and ESG at Oakland Care, as well as a couple of other roles as well. But a bit of context around Oakland Care. We're a care provider of residential nursing and memory care. We have 10 homes across England, and we have approximately 700 residents and 1,200 staff working with us. Just to give you an idea of the business. ESG is hugely important to us and has been for the last 5 years. So we're kind of proud of our sustainability and ESG strategy and how it's come together over the last few years from kind of very small beginnings. We have some nice kind of accreditations to our name. We've been carbon neutral for the last 4 years. We've got a good plan onto net zero as well, and good experience of implementing all of the softer stuff as well around biodiversity, and kind of staff awareness and building green committees and things like that within our organisation. So that's where I come from today. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Aaron. And finally, I will move on to Destiny.
Hi, I'm Destiny Ugbo. I I work for Care Worker Charity, one of the advisory board member, and in Care, I also run a care recruitment agency, D&D MedLink. We cover in West Midland and Worcestershire. Yeah, that's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So the first question that I have is, as some of you have kind of pointed out in your introductions, ESG is such an important topic of conversation that also requires a lot of action. How can we show the value of connecting ESG across the sector?
I'm happy to. Sorry, I'm happy to just make a quick start on that one. That's fine.
Yeah, of course.
So the value of collaboration across the sector on this cannot be underestimated, I would say, because of course we're all on an ESG journey, and we all should be. And there is no doubt that over the years these things are going to become even more important, assessed closer, valued more, both by investors and by staff alike. Government infrastructure and government auditing, etc. It's going to be more and more important to be able to comply with these things and to have that as part of your organization. And of course, that should be a given. It's the right thing to do. In terms of collaborating across the sector, we definitely can't do it alone and in silos as individual businesses. We've seen that a little bit in the early part of our journey. We were fairly pioneering, I would say, in a lot of the sustainability work that we did. And it's been really nice over the last few years to start building more contacts throughout the sector with other groups that are doing the same. And it's invaluable to have that kind of connection. So the value of connecting it across the whole sector is huge. It can't be underestimated. We're all on the same journey. So.
Yeah, and I'd iterate that I think that kind of works across the board as well. So from an investor's perspective, it's really, there's a top-down and a bottom-up approach. Everyone needs to be in alignment with exactly how and what everybody's doing. I think it only will be fully successful if it has the buy-in of every individual within the organization, as well as working with stakeholders to make sure that that's realized. I think in terms of sort of on the ground, sort of the care workers in the homes are integral to making the plans that people might come up with elsewhere sort of realized and happen, and sort of the education and the knowledge that needs to be imparted to sort of get everybody on the same page and aligned to move that forward is crucial to the success, really.
Thank you, Jake.
I mean, I was going to say, Olivia, just from my perspective, I think one of the key reasons for collaboration is this is just really hard. I don't think anyone thinks that kind of moving to net zero or being able to evidence the important evidence how you've changed your business to be more pro sustainability. No one should underestimate how difficult that is. And I think in social care, quite often we're dealing with businesses that employ huge amounts of people that are often based in some old buildings that have got challenges in terms of kind of retrofitting to become net zero, using that type of language. I think unless we kind of talk to those pioneers like Oakland Care and we hear the mistakes they've made, the successes they've had, and share those journeys, I don't think there's any, there's no benefit to hiding this from other operators. How did you motivate your care workers to get involved in the sustainability journey? How did you motivate your staff members at kind of regional management level, care home manager level? I think there's so much we can all learn from each other. And actually, I think this is bigger than just sustainability. Actually, the care sector itself historically has been far too siloed, and that's predominantly because it's full of it's generally 80% of the sector is made up of really kind of quite small businesses, and they all often act quite siloed from each other. They don't necessarily speak to each other on a scale basis. So I think if we can use sustainability to do anything, if it's to get people talking and sharing best practices within the social care sector, that would be a fantastic achievement, I think.
Thank you, Steve. I will move on to Phil.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we certainly find is there are, I guess, different levels of understanding of ESG from organisation to organisation. You've got clearly those that, have embedded and understood and written strategies that's a whole organisation approach. And then there's those that are still kind of, what is it? We know what we understand and adhere to elements to it, but we haven't necessarily got the full strategy. And in many cases, we found some of our care provider customers will still kind of only see it as being a leadership level thing. And we've got the policies, we've got the procedures, we've got a strategy, but actually it doesn't necessarily spread across their entire workforce. And we generally find there's different levels of understanding and application of ESG. So I guess it's that coming together to collaborate, to share best practice, what principles work, what policies, procedures, actions that are taken can work more broadly across the sector.
Thank you, Phil. Destiny, did you want to come in?
Yeah, on sustainability, I think, like me personally, I worked in care for like, God knows, like donkeys, over 10 years experience. I believe that for us to achieve that sustainability and working in collaboration, it's very important to get the care workers involved, really, because we got our own like level of expertise. And if the stakeholders are making some decision about in terms of their policies and care, if we're not involved, I think it's going to lead to like it's not going to be like it's going to be kind of disjointed. It's not going to be like a whole approach. But if we're involved now, we can make our contribution to see how like the policies and the framework can be reshaped to be very sustainable. That's what I think. Because we are I know oftentimes the focus is on NHS and all that. We've been been neglected, and a lot of time people just the policymaker, like the politician, they'll come on board and they say something about care. Once they go, once they get on, get in power, they tend to forget everything about the carers and all that. So I think that working in collaboration cannot be overemphasized. That in terms of their stakeholders meeting to get us involved to share our own opinions and about what we think about moving forward. Yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you, Destiny. I think a lot of the kind of conversations that we've had, just from the first question alone, with Jake talking about like the top down and bottom up approach, and Phil talking about how it's seen very much as a leadership problem. I think it kind of speaks to a lot of the conversations that we've had kind of in previous panels today, is that the adult social care system is an ecosystem, and there's a lot of work that we can do in collaboration with one another. Previously to joining the charity, I was a care worker, and I don't remember ever being involved in any conversations around ESG. It was very much considered my manager's problem on how they were coordinating and making sure that they were working within those principles. So I think kind of what everyone has said is really important. I guess, one thing, Destiny, that you've just touched on is the importance and the need for care workers, and also those drawing on care, to be more involved in kind of shaping these frameworks, and actually everybody else has touched on it as well. How do we get care workers involved in these important conversations? Destiny, I don't know if as you've just spoken about it, if you wanted to come in first of all. How do you want to be involved in these conversations?
I think if they're having like some of the crucial meeting in terms of like some key decision making, some meeting, if they could also invite us to attend and give us that equal opportunity to speak about what they are discussing based on the topics, then we could share our level of expertise on those meetings, rather than bringing those innovation. Like if they bring a new change, for instance, like there are some things that we use at work in terms of the technology that they just brought that into us without even we knowing about it. They just like, you have to use this, and everything is all made. The whole decision has been made from the top. So we just like more of like a follower. We just follow back. We're not part of it. And sometimes that's why, in terms of the efficacy of some of those technology and other things, doesn't really, it's not sustainable in terms of, because sometimes some of them are not fit for purpose, because we know the social care sector in terms of being a frontline worker. So our own point of view is different from those key policymakers. So if they invite us to attend those important conversation, I think that will be very useful. And also, we could also like, it's not everybody that will attend the meeting, like in terms of like a suggestion box where because we got different structures in terms of their ranking in care. We got like the senior carers, the team leaders, the carers, the clinical lead and all that. Then in terms of their ranking structure, even the domestic staff, they are all part of the care team. So they could have the opportunity to submit what they think about a particular policy in terms of the suggestion box in each of the, like in the care home setting, or if you're working in domestic care, then you could like, write it and submit it in there. And if that could be passed on to them, and they'll be able to get access to it rather than just dumping it and just like concluding from the, from the top that they are, more professionals. We're not professionals. I think that will make us to feel kind of to feel much better and much included in those policies and those decision making. Then everybody will feel involved, So I think that will make us feel more valued, and that will make us feel much better. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Desnulo. It's really appreciated. Jake, I will go on to you.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, Destiny, I completely agree with all of the points that you've raised there. I think it's really important that the care workers in the homes get a voice and sort of get a say in what's happening within the homes. They live and breathe every day sort of what's going on within the homes, and they probably have the most control over the end goal of sort of achieving sustainability. I think there's a lot of initiatives within the homes that can be achieved and sort of achieve that sustainable goal simply through turning off lights or having more sustainable practices within the homes, which somebody within a head office that can sort of come up with a policy is never going to be the one that actually puts it into action. So I think it's really key that care workers understand and have that ability to sort of say what they want to do and what they want to achieve. I think a lot of the time environmental sustainability gets labeled with sort of high price tags, but there's a lot of things that are low cost, even just behavioral changes, which can really help to drive sustainability within the home. So giving ownership to those in the home to have that impact is critical. And finally, just in terms of sort of, we obviously bucket it all under ESG, but we talk a lot about the environmental, but the social is critical as well. And I think care workers have the biggest impact on the social element within the homes. They take part in the daily activities, they take part in community events, and they take care in the well-being of all of the residents and the other staff that they work with. So from a social perspective, it's also really integral. And I think a lot of it's probably business as usual, but just recognizing that work as well.
Thank you, Jake. Aaron, I believe you were next.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of obviously agree what Destiny said, and with experience of doing that as best we can over the last 5 years, really, one of the first things that we did was form what we called a green committee. And I would say even that sounds a bit too formal as a title, but it seems to have worked. We've looked across our group and we've just basically said, hands up, who's interested in this? That was our selection process for the steering committee for everything to do with ESG, because that's how you find the right people, the people that are passionate. If they haven't got a senior title and it doesn't seem to fit in a job description neatly, that's irrelevant. You've got the right people immediately in your committee, as we've called it. We started with 5 and we've got 60 now in our green committee. I'm meeting with them tomorrow actually, and we took them out last month for an away day in the summer. They're an amazing group of people, and by having that kind of approach, a hands up, who's interested, who wants to help, who's got some ideas, and that being the selection process, we've ended up with really good value on that. So we've got people on the green committee that might be an administrator or a manager, or they may well not be. We've got a lot of people from our lifestyles teams, carers, some housekeepers, a head chef, a maintenance person. It's a random selection if you look at job description, but again, that's irrelevant. The cross section is very valuable, and that has helped us build a strategy and implement ideas that that actually work because the team members have already tried them. For instance, something small and they think I tried this and it worked. How about that? And then we can kind of steer it a bit more centrally and often kind of push it back out, you know, maybe with a bit of project planning or whatever it might be, to get some consistency on that across the group. But the ideas then are very much kind of free flowing up and down, if you like. So yeah, I can completely agree with that. And having a green committee has worked very well for us.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Stephen, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just really briefly, and I certainly can't improve on what's been said. But one example I saw when I was on my travels one day in a care home was that they, instead of having a kind of ESG champion amongst one of the carers, they kind of broke that role down to a number of different sort of specific roles, and they didn't just have a champion from the carer, they had a champion, one of the residents as well. It was an elderly home. So an example would be the sort of food waste champion. There was a carer who was in charge of that and a resident. Then we also had the kind of the windows and heating champion. So if anyone went into a room where the windows were open but the heating was on, there was a responsibility in one of the residents and one of the carers to call that out and change that, which is because a classic example of kind of, I guess, energy wastage you see, especially within elderly care homes. So I thought that was nice, kind of tying in both the resident and the carer to it and making it specific, so we don't use kind of frightening, complex language, which I think we're all guilty of within the sustainability network, if you like.
Thank you, Steve. Phil? Oh, sorry, I think
Sorry, I'm on mute. I'm on
mute.
mute. Apologies. I'm at risk of just echoing what everyone's already said, but I think, you know, I absolutely agree with what everyone said. I think in simple terms, a lot of this is kind of down to culture, isn't it? And having a culture of kind of inclusivity and involving colleagues in everything and anything that an organization does, particularly around ESG. So you've got the voice of the people who are, you know, frontline doing what they do, and you're taking an holistic view that feeds in and out of your kind of ESG strategy. And I think I certainly agree with Jacob that this is not always just environmental, it's the social element. This is about, you know, ensuring that colleagues are supported, their health and well-being is supported, they are recognised for the work that they do, and ultimately they're trained and they're skilled and they're supported in what they do. So I think for me, a lot of this kind of comes down to organisational culture.
Thank you, Phil. And I think, you know, kind of that element of you drawing on, you know, like the health and well-being as well is such an important part. You know, in May of this year, we launched our annual well-being report based on a survey of over 2,000 care workers. And it was really interesting to look at the support or lack thereof for care workers' well-being. And, you know, as you quite rightly said, it's so important. One of the things that you just touched upon was kind of, you know, the need for inclusivity. Obviously, we've got some really great examples on this panel of making sure that, you know, everybody is interconnected and involved in these conversations. But how, you know, kind of maybe focusing on best practice, how do we make these kind of conversations and kind of frameworks more inclusive and transparent? Because, you know, as some have pointed out, there is a lack of education for some people. They might not know what ESG is. So how do we make these conversations, processes, frameworks more inclusive, more transparent, and also accountable as well? Phil, is that a leftover hand up or is your hand still up?
So that's a leftover hand up. Someone else can go. Apologies.
Steve,
I don't mind going on this. Look, I'll just say really quickly. I touched on it a second ago. We've got to change the language. You know, if you hear people talking about ESG, I mean, don't use abbreviations. Full stop probably is a good piece of advice. I mean, people talk in terms of scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. I mean, I know what that means. You guys, this panel know what that means in the main, but it's not normal language. It's not things people are going to engage with. I mean, like super smart, super educated, high performing people aren't going to know what that means. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. So I think we've got to keep it down to actual practical benefits. You know, the example I gave a second ago about the sort of the windows and the heating, the one that always gets given, to be fair, when we have conversations like this, that understanding how, you know, people, everyone, and another thing, sorry, just on that point, you can bring everyone has their own, every individual is sort of managing their own life, and within kind of care businesses or care charities, it's just a bigger example of what people have to do in their own lives. So people have to pay utility bills, don't they? And they understand that those utility bills go up the more energy you use. Well, that's the same for a care home. It's the same for a care business. So it's just sort of trying to sort of anchor what they do when they come to work in what they do in their own lives. And I think if you do that, it starts to become much more real to them, rather than talking in scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 type language.
Thank you, Steve. Aaron?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, 100%, Stephen. I just want to follow on from that, really, is that this was our drive to start, actually, is that we were finding in employee surveys and just general kind of comment around the home that things that people were doing at home on what is a relatively small scale for the country weren't being replicated in a big business workplace. So yeah, they're being careful to turn the lights off at home. They're doing a bit of home composting, or they're doing, kind of whatever with those things in mind. Then they come to work and, a 100-bed care home is not doing those things. So what's the point of me doing it at home in my 1-bedroom home? So yeah, that was a big driver for us at the start. And that's how we kind of gained some success, actually, was with some of those small implementations that people really can engage with. From it's just a replication of things you do at home. Let's enable you to do them at work, because it's going to make life easier for you, and it's going to make you feel, rightfully make you feel good about what you're doing. So yeah, that was a huge part for us, and helping kind of include everybody at that point. In terms of the terminology, yes, I couldn't agree more. We educate, but we also protect our green committee and the wider business from that kind of jargon. We deal with that as we have to. We have to deal with the ESOS compliance and kind of ESG reports and all of those things, and we do them. That's fine. But we don't, down at kind of home level with the passionate people that want to make a difference, we don't get bogged down in those kind of things. We talk about kind of real world stuff that makes people happy, that makes a difference, and off we go. And it all feeds in to the, kind of the high level reporting things that we do at this end. So yeah, I agree. We're never going to get there as a country if all we're doing is arguing about the definition of scope 3, for instance.
Thank you, Aaron. Phil?
Yeah, I think I echo that, and I think the kind of jargon busting thing is probably the key point that I'd agree with on that one, that this is about clean and easy communication of what is ESG in practical terms, and kind of hiding the wiring of all of the policy and strategy and legislation that should kind of sit in the boardroom or wherever it needs to sit. But I think this is ultimately about communications and empowering the workforce to be more proactive in shaping an organization's ESG plan. And it can be as little as having an ideas box in a setting to kind of encourage and empower colleagues to kind of think of, maybe only a small thing, but it can make a difference, whether it's environmental or what can they do as a workforce to work together, what impact can they make by working together, etc. So I think it's a good, open, transparent flow of communication across an organization.
Thank you. I'm also, sorry, Jake, I will go to you.
So no, I was just to add, sort of, I think, completely agree with everything that's been said. And I mean, one of the things we did, every year we publish a Advancing ESG in Healthcare guide, and we had a page dedicated to breaking down the jargon, and it could have been the whole booklet itself. So I think, making sure that is very open and transparent is key, but also just sort of making sure that decisions aren't made behind closed doors. So having everybody involved in sort of the process of what are we trying to achieve, what's our end goal, and how are we going to get there, to make sure that everybody understands the why, not just the what. So I think that's really key to sort of getting everybody involved and sort of making real change happen.
Thank you. And I think that also kind of points quite nicely to Destiny's previous point is, if we have care workers in the room where the conversations are going on, that in and of itself is also in part education. If you're letting care workers in, people drawing on care in, we expand the scope of the conversation to make sure that everyone is involved. I'm just looking at the Q&A, and there is a 3-parter question from Happiness, and I thought now might be quite a good chance to kind of fit it in. So Happiness's first question is, how can the care sector be aligned with national climate goals and regulatory requirements? I don't know who would want to take this.
I can have a first go.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so I think the care sector in itself, in regards to sort of climate goals and regulatory requirements, I think the regulatory requirements, a lot of it we're doing already. A lot of work's gone into the real estate to try and bring it up to standard. There's definitely going to be a lot more work to do. The climate goals, I think, is going to be the challenging one. Really sort of driving down the energy usage. Care homes are notoriously high energy users and by virtue have high carbon emissions. It's not going to be an overnight change of we just move from gas or oil to electricity and make that renewable and on a green contract. So there is definitely going to be work to do. I think in terms of, as mentioned earlier, sort of having people on the ground in the homes going off and switching the lights off, as Steve mentioned, going in and sort of shutting windows if the heating's on and or vice versa. There's definitely sort of small things that everybody can do, but then there's going to be the need for a lot of sort of cash injection to put the infrastructure in place within the homes to make sure that they're sort of in line to achieve those climate goals around carbon reduction and also overcoming overheating. That's obviously a big risk within the care sector.
Thank you, Jake. Steve?
I mean, like on that point, the care sector isn't going to be excluded from legislation when it comes to the track. I mean, the UK government have got a manifesto commitment to be net zero by 2050. And they've set a kind of roadmap to some extent for that, and that involves things like, as you've heard, things like no petrol cars, no gas boilers. There will be a commitment on energy performance certificates, which is a rating that each individual building in the UK gets to be of a certain standard. So, I think what maybe might complicate this question to some extent is that really that so far is a lot of commitments and a very little amount of legislation so far. And I think that leans into kind of some of the, I guess, the political aspects of ESG and sustainability the last year or so. It hasn't kind of stepped forward quite as fast as we thought it would. But just because it hasn't moved quickly in the last 12 months doesn't mean it won't move quickly again in the future. And I think it's important that care providers are not just thinking about what the legislation is now, but they need to think about the direction of travel and where they might need to be in a number of years' time. And I think the kind of head in the sand approach, which very, very few operators are taking now, but there still is an aspect of that, that probably isn't going to be a successful play in the medium to long term.
Thank you, Steve. Aaron?
Thanks, Olivia. Yes, following on a bit from Steve, but it probably ticks off question 3 while we're at it as well. Kind of how do we do this? I mean, how are we ever going to get to net zero by 2050? There's going to be a lot of wider infrastructure that's necessary in the country, full stop. We can't expect all of our team members to commute to us in a net zero way unless the electric cars are out there or whatever it might be, an electric bus, an electric train and everything like that. We can't expect everyone to individually go searching on Google to buy solar panels and just get it done individually. And if we're buying green energy, there's got to be the green energy produced to buy, right? So it's a country group effort by 2050. And we as businesses, like any other business, just need to make sure that we're ready and that we're keeping up and that we're not getting left behind, so that as these wider changes are implemented across the country, we're ready to take them, we're ready to implement them. And so I would say, in terms of keeping up and doing enough for now, is just making sure you're definitely not getting left behind. No head in the sand stuff. Just do your best to be leading with this. And every time you've got a new opportunity to put something new in, is looking, is that the best that's out there? Is that the best that I can do at the moment? And then more will come in the kind of the wider country as we all get to 2050 together.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, and I think that did kind of answer Happiness's third question about how can an environmentally sustainable social care system be constructed. I think the second question of Happiness is quite primarily it's focused on kind of environmental sustainability, because I think it's such a big topic of conversation. But Happiness's second question was, what are the potential direct healthcare impacts of moving towards a low carbon society and of climate change itself? Again, Jake?
Yeah.
Or Stephen, sorry.
Steve, you go.
Oh, well, I was going to make a sort of very big picture type comment really here about, what is this all for? Why are we doing this? It's not just about the care sector. It's there is we have kind of climate change, I guess, around the world. We have kind of ever eroding natural resources, and I think if everyone kind of pulls together globally and commits to the sort of targets that we need to get to net zero to stop sort of burning carbon, then everyone will be healthier and happier generally. We'll live in a more kind of less polluted air, cleaner water, better food, all of that sort of stuff, and that involves every single person. So sometimes it's good to kind of not get away from the wider point of why this is being done. It's to try and at least reduce the amount by which the Earth's temperature is increasing every year at the moment, because at current run rate it's heading for a kind of a material miss on that kind of Paris protocol. So climate change is a direct result, most people would agree, to overuse of burning carbon, and I don't think our children, grandchildren, whatever it might be, are going to be very pleased with us if we don't take direct action now about how we go about slowing down that change.
Yeah, I mean, just to sort of bring that, I guess, as well to sort of the local scale, so in terms of the healthcare impact that it can have to move to a low carbon economy or society and climate change, I think there's definite positive impacts that it can have. I think the rollout of green spaces, working with sort of local organizations, and Aaron, I know you worked with the National Wildlife Trust on sort of garden landscaping to enhance the green spaces within sort of the care home setting, will enhance also the residents' well-being, the care workers' well-being. So I think there's definite, while it's what it can be seen as quite sort of doom and gloom, the carbon sort of state that we're in, I think there's definitely positive impacts that can be had rather than sort of the negative impacts on healthcare delivery itself.
Thank you. The next question, I think one of the biggest concerns, for care providers, but also care workers as well, is ensuring that there is a consistent delivery of high quality care. So I'd really love to know how you think we can balance ESG with delivering high quality care.
I'm happy to start there.
Yeah.
Steve said earlier that ESG is very difficult, and I don't disagree that in the big picture it certainly is, but I also think people worry it's more difficult than it actually needs to be, and people see it as an opposition to efficient running of a business and things like good quality care. They see this as an extra thing that's got to be done on the side, that's going to get in the way and going to make it harder. Whereas in fact, we've seen that it's the complete opposite. And that actually, if you are running a business sustainably, then you are running it more efficiently, quite probably. You are saving some money, probably. If you're switching off lights and producing less waste, then you're certainly saving money. And you've got better engaged staff through wellbeing initiatives and everything else that you've done there. So it doesn't, although you have got to balance it, actually you should get stuck in and go for it, because it will undoubtedly enhance your business. It won't be anything to fight what you're trying to do already, if that makes sense. So we've done that, and we've certainly done that with a lot of kind of over celebration of successes that we've had. Really got some good motivation going within the teams that's kind of snowballed into more, and we kind of found in the early days that we all got carried away with it actually, and found that we were good at it and it was great, rather than it being a job to do or a barrier. So yes, although you have got to kind of balance the time spent on each, of course, you should look at it as almost an investment in the business. It's going to make people happier, and care delivery is going to be better.
Thank you, Aaron. Phil, I'll move on to you.
Yeah, so I was just going to kind of touch on, I guess, the governance side in response to that in terms of delivering the quality of care, because this is around having the right governance, the right structure, the right processes, ensuring there's transparency, accountability across an organisation, which ultimately then intrinsically links to the social element, because then people are clear of what their roles are, they're well trained, they're well supported. So I think the kind of governance element is critical to this, because you need to have good governance to ensure that you can provide that high quality of care through your workforce and everything else. So I think there's multiple kind of threads of how you achieve it, but it all ultimately drives better quality of care by investing in that kind of infrastructure and ensuring that people are on board and understand what's involved in ESG to achieve that.
Thank you, Phil. Jake?
So it was just to sort of add to that point as well, just around sort of the governance and with the CQC, they're now looking to include sustainability in as a care standard. They've got it for the NHS, but they're looking that it's likely to come through for care homes as well. So it's around sort of demonstrating that knowledge and action in the sustainability space. So I think that's going to be really tested around that good governance side as well, and sort of what people's understanding is and how that has been integrated into the business. I was just going to say as well, in terms of the sort of integration of environmental and renewable technologies, it also kind of has a snowball effect. We've got instances of where we've worked with operators to put in solar panels or air source heat pumps, and it kind of gets people talking within the homes as well. So they then start asking questions about how they could get involved or what they could do. And I think it's really it brings everybody together in terms of that sort of, it's not going to impact the delivery of healthcare. It's going to sort of enhance it, and it's going to give people sort of that space to get involved as well. So kind of, it works to sort of incorporate everybody together.
Thank you, Jake. Destiny, I will go to you.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. In terms of my contribution, in terms of the high quality of care, I'll look at it from also from a financial point of view. My contribution is that if we could have like a minimum financial standard in terms of the minimum amounts that looking at the domiciliary care agency, and looking at the minimum financial standard that they could accept, because that's going to affect the quality of care. We discovered that currently, like in terms of care workers, we go like generally minimum wage. A lot of us are minimum wage, and maybe slightly over minimum wage. But if those care providers, in terms of their contracts with local authorities and with the private individual, sometimes those with private individuals, in terms of domiciliary care and also care agency, they haven't really got like a benchmark where that we can't go below this amount of money per hour. There's nothing regulating that. So if you bid in that for like, let's say, £20 per hour, for instance, before you know, somebody will come from your back and they will do it for like even 16 or 17 pounds per hour and all that. And when you look at that, and that's going to affect the quality of care, because those on domiciliary care, if you're supporting a patient for like, you go like 2 hours on call to support a patient on an hour, and you get paid like a certain amount of money. So in terms of the quality of care you're going to deliver, in terms of the time, the care package is very reduced. So it's going to be all rush. You're not going to be able to like spend that kind of quality time and giving like the best practice. That's why sometimes the care workers could like cut corners, instead of using a slide sheet to slide the patient off the bed because of the time, they might just use the sheets and just to cut corners and make it a bit quicker and all that. So that's going to affect the quality of care. Why? Because of the amount they get paid, and because of the slots. You only go like maybe an hour to do so much. So to be able to perform that task, they have to cut corners. So what I'm saying is they could have like the minimum pricing that they can't go below that, just like a minimum wage that's accepted in the country. I think that's going to positively affect the quality of care. Thank you.
Thank you, Destiny. And I think that is also a really important point that you bring up, I think a lot of the conversations that we've had around ESG have centered around care homes, residential care homes. How do we apply ESG principles for domiciliary care providers or domiciliary care workers? How do we make sure that ESG principles are, across the board?
I'll start off again. I think really in terms of it's a multitude of scales. So we can have sort of reduced waste. So a lot of the healthcare industry relies on single use or heavily plastic based, and just kind of looking at the alternatives that are available, sort of to reduce waste and not impact the healthcare delivery as well. So there's a number of pioneering technologies out there that are sort of looking at ways to do things differently. And also in terms of sort of recycling, there's blister pack recycling now, and there's services that can do that. It's just kind of looking at other ways. I think otherwise there's again, a lot of these things will transfer into that sort of domiciliary care setting. It's just kind of looking at the scale at which we're sort of taking it head on.
Thank you, Jake. One of the, obviously, as I've kind of just pointed out in my questioning, as we know, care workers are not a homogenous group, but neither are care providers. What are some of the practical steps, and maybe Aaron, you could kind of draw on best practices and also others as well, but what are some of the practical steps that perhaps smaller care providers could take to be more sustainable without risking care quality and or financial stability?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So of course you've got to find things that are straightforward to do, or they will make the lives easier actually for the care workers and for everyone in the home. You're going to get engagement there straight away. So a lot of the kind of the smaller things are all of the things that we started doing and that we still do. The important thing is, if a small idea is suggested or an opportunity is seen, is to actually get on and do it very quickly, even if it needs to be more polished a little bit later on, perhaps. I mean, I'll give you a really crude example. The first thing we ever did was got an old black bucket and wrote batteries on the side, stuck it in the corner of the admin office because we didn't have battery recycling. And then we did. We're going to take that bucket up Tesco's every week and tip it in, right? Very crude, very basic. And of course, we've got a more polished system now. But those very kind of simple things, that didn't cost any money, but what it did, it spread ideas because people saw that and thought, if that bucket counts as an idea, I've got 10 like that. And then they told us, and then we did them, and they were great. So there's lots of small practical things that they could do, but I would advise, and it's not that expensive to do so. There's a lot of kind of basic frameworks out there. We used Greenmark in the early days, and there's lots like that. It gives you a checklist, a to-do list, a simple kind of practical. If you do this, it's a tick. If you don't do it, it's a cross. And it's quite rewarding to work your way through those and make small changes amongst your team and amongst your locations to kind of, to tick something off. If you get a certificate at the end, even better. Again, over celebrate it, and then you move on to the next bit. It doesn't need to be expensive to do those things, and it can often be small changes that kind of make people's lives easier, or like we were saying, and Steve was saying earlier, things that people doing at home that are actually quite small and simple to do. We can then enable that to happen in the workplace. So not everything needs to cost money. Lots of things can actually save money, even if it's small amounts. It can make things inefficient, and it will just build some momentum within the team. So yeah, any small idea, just crack on and give it a go.
Thank you, Aaron. Did anyone else want to come in? Steve, I can see.
Yeah, I really like that point about getting some type of framework, just downloading it off one of the numerous websites that are available, Google, sustainability framework or ESG framework for small businesses or something like that. And so many companies are giving these away for free. But even better, if you can steal one off a sort of competitor or a friend in the sector who's already started that journey, or come to one of our meetings and ask someone to see their sustainability plan, or their kind of carbon reduction plan, whatever it might be, then what I think is amazing at those things, what you'll find is, I bet, even a care home that's not even uttered the words sustainability through the doors will find at least a third of those things they're already doing. And that's pretty exciting when you actually find that you've already started your journey, you just haven't realized it yet. You can have a little celebration about that, because it turns out you are doing great things with recycling, you are doing fantastic things in the community. So ticking that S box, you're probably already doing loads of governance because you're regulated already. So, and that applies to kind of domiciliary care just as well, supported living as well as kind of care homes themselves. So yeah, use what's out there. Don't expect to kind of come up with all these ideas yourselves, because you don't need to. Other people have done that already, and you can just pick the best ones that suit you. And just as much of this almost suits a small business as it does the largest businesses, because actually the largest care home group in the UK is just 400 versions of one care home, isn't it? They're individually, they're all basically the same thing. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Thank you, Steve. Jacob?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so as well in terms of that financial side, just looking at schemes that are available as well. So there's a lot of government-led or national grants that are available for things like solar panels, heat pumps. They're at different levels. Some are only available to small businesses, but not large businesses. So actually being of a smaller scale could be of benefit. And then also, I guess, sort of if you're a carer that travels for work, looking at schemes around electric vehicles or an EV charging points, there's a number of things that are out there that are actually going to save you money and not cost anything up front if you're able to get a grant or a sort of financial scheme. But yeah, as Steve and Aaron have said, sort of starting small and building up is what we've seen to be successful as well. So across the many operators we work with, starting with one or two smaller schemes and then growing those is a lot more effective than going in with one large scheme that people might lose interest, or it might not be as straightforward. So I think sort of building up that momentum and sort of getting the ball rolling is the key to sort of get it going.
Thank you, Jake. Phil, did you want to come in at all? No pressure.
There's nothing really else to add other than what's been said, because I think Steve's analogy around like 400 care homes doing the same. Most organisations, we see some fantastic examples of ESG in small independent organisations. It's not about budget, and it's not about having loads of extra resource to specialise in something. In most cases, they are already doing it and doing it incredibly well. But like everyone said, there are resources, frameworks, all sorts of things out there at very little or nil cost that people can access if they even want to just, validate what they're doing or fill in any gaps. So no, I think everyone's made that really clear.
Thank you. I'm aware that we've got just under 10 minutes left of the panel, and I might be putting you on the spot a little bit about this, but I think a lot of the conversation of this panel has centered around kind of debunking some myths and also the language that's used around ESG and making these kind of conversations and frameworks more accessible and transparent. If you could kind of say, maybe in a sentence or two, the one thing that you wish people knew about ESG and its importance, what would that be? Phil, I'm going to go to Phil first because he's actually unmuted. So I'm going to put him directly on the spot first.
Thinking, so feel free for anyone else to go, because I'm desperately thinking. I mean, I do actually think it's that kind of myth busting, and it's that jargon free. I think that's the one thing. I've kind of been involved in ESG for many years, but I see in organisations that it's still, what is it? Who's responsible for it? How do we embed it? What do we do? Is it, and kind of see it as probably in many cases being more complex than it actually is. So I think the biggest thing is around, for me personally, it's around how you and kind of embrace that a culture of openness, good communication, good structure, and good leadership effectively, because I think everything else should largely follow on the back of that. That's a very big sentence, but hopefully answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Phil. I'm aware I've put people on the spot here. Jake?
Yeah, so I think, as we've sort of mentioned, collaboration is key when it comes to sustainability, ESG, the environmental, the social, the governance, working together to sort of get to where we need to be. Like we said before about sort of the 2050 deadline on net zero, we're not going to get there individually. We need to work together to reach that goal. So I think if you're concerned of where to start, or if you're looking around thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. A lot of people are probably in the same boat. So sort of having those open conversations around what is best practice, what's one person doing, I think that's really going to be key to getting to where we need to be. And I think, yeah, to reiterate what Phil said, sort of, I think a lot of people are actually doing a lot of the things they need to be doing. They're just not recognizing that they're doing it yet. So I think in terms of the social side, for example, a lot of care home operators, domiciliary care providers are going to be doing a lot around the social, and they probably are doing quite a bit on the environmental, but it just goes under the business as usual category. It doesn't go down under the documented and shout about it bucket. So I think just sort of sitting down and recognizing what you are doing, taking stock of those things, and celebrating it as well is yeah, really important as well. Sorry, that was 2 sentences.
That's all right. Again, thank you. Aaron.
I think I'll say something I haven't said yet, which is don't underestimate the value of changes that cannot be quantified financially or even at all. It sounds like a strange thing to say, but something that's worked really well for us, for instance, is biodiversity gardens. It didn't really cost any money to do. There's probably no financial return on it. It's hard to know really what that's going to do to benefit you, but don't be frightened to do these things anyway. Go with your gut. If it feels like that should be a good, that's the right thing to do to have more wildlife in your garden, then do it, because that has just been an amazing talking point for our residents, for the families, for the staff, and you can't put a value on that. And it's again, you know, you can't make a business plan for that as such, but there's no argument that it feels like the right thing to do, and some of ESG is like that. So don't be frightened to make those changes. You know, don't be frightened to make mistakes either. If you try something and it doesn't work, never mind. Well done for trying it. You know, try something else. Yeah, these kind of changes have real value. It's as far away from a net zero calculation probably as you can get, but it's equally important on the ground.
Thank you. Destiny?
Yeah, I think the ESG is more of like awareness and education, you know, like the carers getting involved. I think that's very important because that ESG is very important. It's going to lead to, you know, like if we can achieve that, better quality of life, it's going to save cost. So I think it's very important that it's something that it has to do with like a slight cultural shift for us to embrace it and start doing it gradually. And you know, working in collaboration and that education for us to get involved and knowing what to do, and you know, like passing on the knowledge to other members of the staff, like other team. Yeah.
Thank you. And finally, Steve, I've actually given you the most time to think about this, so I will hand over to you.
Yeah, great. I think it's really a follow-on from Aaron's point. I think, you know, the analogy of the carrot and stick is often used in sustainability. Once you've made a decision that you want to make your business more sustainable or your care home more sustainable, my one piece of advice would be to always take the carrot approach and try and kind of win the hearts and minds of the care workers, of the residents, get them fully involved. I really don't think that the stick works. We started off by talking about legislation that may or may not be coming down the line, the language we use, etc. But first and foremost, you've got to get people on side. You've got to get people who are motivated and willing to do it. And I think, you know, Aaron talks about some of the great things they've done at Open Care, and there are some shining examples in the sector to look at and to copy.
Thank you so much. That actually brings us to the end of this panel. I want to say a big thank you to the panelists, Jake, Phil, Steve, Destiny and Aaron. Thank you all so much for offering your time and offering your knowledge and expertise to this really incredibly important topic. Another thank you goes again to Flourish Learning for sponsoring this session. As I said at the beginning, this session has been recorded and will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. So if you have missed it, there's absolutely no need to worry about that because you will be able to watch it. Thank you again so much to everybody on the panel and also our attendees who have been watching. And I hope you all have a lovely rest of your afternoon.